Hi everybody, welcome to part 18 of Learning to Draw with Andrew Loomis's Fun with a Pencil. We are resuming on page 58, doing some more practice. Do some of these. So these are going to be more practice of movement. We last worked on the figure using our balanced triangles and so forth. Now we're going to draw a few more iterations of these guys. We're going to choose whatever ones we want, practice some more of these. And then, as he suggests, invent some of your own, or I take that as a point of departure to take some photos of myself, have some photos of myself taken, and work from them so I can get some more practice in before we move on to adding flesh and meat to the skeleton, which we've been practicing with. So as you can see with these figures, they have single lines. They don't have any meat to them. And we're going to be adding that soon. So hang in there. Let's draw some of these characters. I'm going to start with this little guy over here. Starting with that chest ball. Now with the chest ball, it's got that rib cage. This defines the angle. And remember, the spine is wrapping around, coming out here. We've got the pelvis box. This is a nice pencil. This is a Faber-Castell 2B. I know, a lot of you requested larger than 2B, but because it's a thick pencil, this is working quite nicely. And it's nice for doing the gestural elements to these figures. So in this case, he's got this little guy running. Like I said, the foot pad there, kind of a stubby little guy here. And he's got the little shoulder. You can't see this shoulder so much because it's obscured by the chest ball, but we have this arm coming out here and the other arm back here. Seeing the elbow right there and the other pad. And well, the head is situated in there. The neck is kind of in between here. We can't really see what's going on with that. A little indication of the nose, the mouth, and the ear here. You can ink these if you want. But really, aside from adding a little bit more detail, I don't really see a point too much in inking them. If you want to use that to define three-dimensional space by adding dark lines over to say that this piece comes in front of the rest of it, or just generally defining in what you're drawing, we are really just doing sort of a gestural practice, so your figures needn't be very, very defined. Figuring out how the figure works in motion. So it's good to be a little bit loose with that. This guy's kind of cool because he's got a bigger head. So we're going to draw one of those. Start off with that head there. This midline, the nose. Working with that. And then he has a little tiny chest here with that rib cage, shoulders, the arms, okay, spine there, pelvis box. Like I said, not 100% necessary to come in with pen over this, but I will have a little bit of fun with it just for the fun of it. This is where that inventing element came in that he was talking about. Okay, and we will do one more. I'll do this boating one. My brother's out fishing in Florida right now, so I'm gonna do this in honor of him. So we'll draw the boat in first. And then we have the character sitting on a seat that happens back here, so we can go ahead and start with the pelvis box there. And the legs come out, you got the knees here and here, indicate it roughly, so the character is sitting. And then we basically have him hunched over, putting the spine arcing like this, and then we have the little chest ball And the character is holding. Notice, like I said, we don't have any meat on these bones yet so far, but that's something that's coming up soon. The real purpose of this lesson is to focus on a little more practice of the figure in motion and how that goes. So we have this. I'm actually working on a mural with some figures fishing, so I'll take this as a little bit of practice. And we have that line going all the way down here with a little fish right there, like that. Pretty fun stuff. Let's move on to these three that I worked from. And you're welcome to work from these if you want, or you can, at some point, pause the video and prepared some photos to work from. We'll just do three, and we will flip this in order to have a little more space to work from. So we can adjust our workspace a little bit, still referencing a little bit of the skeletal form and design that he has while looking at these reference images, making sure that we are inside the frame here as far as the sketch goes. So let's just go left to right. We'll start with this drawing here, or I'm sorry, photo here, and we'll draw all three here. So the head is like a ball, but we have a divided ball and plane method here happening, keeping in terms of that. So we have the head there defined in there, and here's where we can start to benefit from the Loomis method for these figures. We'll try to place the chest ball right about here. Keep in mind that the chest ball is not the whole torso. We are just extracting that chest ball. We're basically where the rib cage would be. So we have the neck come down a little bit in the back, and then we have the chest ball here, keeping in mind the midline coming down here and Y that we're seeing here. The shoulder happens in front here, so this is arcing down like this. The other shoulder happens behind the chest ball, we're not seeing it. And we keep track of the spine, the way it comes around the back. And of course, connects here. And then we have the pelvis, which we can try to think of in terms of perspective, like this face is right here, and then it goes back in this direction and comes out like this. So we have that, and then we have the hip bone coming out like this, but it comes back like this. And then the bow, which of course can be seen in his, that the leg does bow. And then basically we have the foot pad here, like that, and then we have the other leg coming down. So this one comes out and then comes down. Keep in mind where the knee is placed, follow that arc. Knee is placed about here, and then keep in mind where the foot is planted, how far up on your two-dimensional surface. So this is higher than this point. So you can draw the ankle and just draw them in as pads like Loomis has. Now, the head is a little big here, but that's okay. I have a big head. So now we can draw that arm, which stops at the edge of the rib cage, which is the case for most of these guys as well. Everybody's a little bit different. And then that arm curves, like Loomis says. Keep in mind how wide it is. It terminates right in front of the chest ball. And we draw the pad. We're just drawing a pad at this point. We're not drawing any fingers or so forth like that. And as tempted as we are to add volume to this, the only volume he's defined is the head, the pelvis, and the chest ball. But we will be covering soon a little more of the meat that we put to these bones. The arm, my left arm in this picture, is not very visible. So the shoulder's here, it goes back here, it's foreshortened, and then it goes straight down. So we're not really seeing that. Now, if we do want, we can add a little more practice into this by drawing in some of these features. Drawing in a little bit of an eyebrow, eye right there, a little bit of the head shape, nose, and there's the jawline. Definitely follows the divided ball and plane method. Like I said, my estimation in the beginning was a little too far back, but that's okay. This is where that ink can come in handy. Okay, so we have the head roughed in there. And like I said, not a lot you can do too much with the ink when it comes to this, because we like to draw more of the form, but we're not there yet with the meat, putting on the meat on the bones. But we can show roughly or reiterate what we did in this process. Now remember, when we drew the pelvis, we had the midline in these guys. It's not so much visible here, but it was in previous lessons, so we're going to continue with that. And then we have like so. Now we will continue with the middle pose, just quite interesting. The middle pose is a jumping pose, obviously. We can start with the head here. Learning from this, we make the head ball a little bit smaller. That line of axis, the nose, the eyes, and the mouth here. We have a little bit of the underside of the chin, and then the ears like that. Making sure to draw the neck. Now we can draw, this kind of curves in this direction, so we keep that in mind, but now we'll draw the chest ball. And we would be seeing the rib cage like this, and we have the shoulders out here, arching, and then this arm pretty much goes straight out like that. And this one, you can do this if you want, draw a gestural line indicating where you want to go with these features. This one, we are seeing probably a little bit of the top of the pelvis box, and then the front face of it there, keeping in mind the center line. We're not drawing any meat here, we're just drawing the skeleton beneath the figure. Now we can draw in these arms, draw the elbow, and then that curve there, just a pad here. And then the other elbow going out here, you got another pad. Not drawing any fingers yet. Keep in mind, I know it's kind of hard. You want to get into that, but really the study is just to keep recognizing the forms over and over and over again. What is he talking about? Remember, the pelvis is actually smaller than you think it is because the hip bone goes out a little bit. So we have this one, and keep in mind the how high or how long these legs are. Try to draw that. So that would be about this length, about the length from the top of my pelvis to the top of my head, which is about that, and that comes out the bottom here. So that's that one. And then the other one is longer. It's about a head taller, what I mean by the top of pelvis to top of head, plus another head, which kind of leaves you about here. Now we can have, keep in mind that Loomis has those upper thighs tilting in still, and then going out like this with the pad like that, and then tilting in, of course, keeping in mind how far the knee goes down. It kind of goes down at this angle, and then straight down like that. And then what adds a lot to this length is the length of the pad, which, because the feet are hanging like that, they're not flattened out like they're standing because I'm jumping in that picture. But there you have pretty much that. We'll go over a little bit over drawing in some of these details here. Keep in mind that the head is tilted up a little bit, so the ear will be actually lower than we think it is. But basically, that's it in a nutshell. You have the overall form, and then the spine is pretty much, since we're facing directly on, it's not tilting, you're not seeing any of the curvature, it's really just more like a line. And as we talked about in another video with the perspective of the sphere, it is kind of nice to be able to keep in mind perspective, because the viewer's eye line is probably about here, since I'm jumping, which means that anything below, you're seeing just a slight amount of the top of it. The further down it is, the more you're seeing the bottom of it. And that really I can draw very quickly here, and I've brought this up in other videos, is the horizon line is right here. You're looking up at items, and you're seeing the bottom. And the more you look up at them, the more of the bottom you actually see. And vice versa, when you're looking down, which is what's happening on the top of the pelvis here, you're seeing the top of the pelvis, and then you're seeing the tops of items. This is easier to tell when you put it into context that this could be a cube or a rectangular form, where you can actually see that has shape and you're seeing the top as opposed to the bottom. But this is what happens every time in perspective. You've got a horizon line, which I estimate to be about here. The viewer was here, their headline. The horizon line is the eye level, basically. If the viewer is here, because I'm jumping up, you're going to see a little bit of the top of this, and you're going to see a little bit of the underside of the rib cage. Just a little bit, and then you're seeing more. Even though my head is tilted back, you are seeing just a little bit of the bottom of the chin there as well. All right, let's move on to the third and final photo here, working from this one. This one is a little less dynamic of a pose, but the head pose is actually doing something interesting here. We have the ball, and we define the midline and the angle. So we have the divided ball and plane method, basically. And the angle of the head is tilted up and away, actually. So like so, something like this. We have the eyes there, and then we have the neck back here, and then the chest ball, something like this. The chest ball is out, puffed out, like I'm leaning back in a way. And then we follow the front line of the chest ball and create that Y for the rib cage. Then we arch the top of the shoulders, create the shoulders here, and then and what's happening behind it is the spine coming back through here. And what we have here is the chest, the pelvis square or rectangle in that form, and a little bit of the perspective there as well. And now we draw in. This arm is not visible at all. It's occluded by that. I'm not sure what's going on, so I'm not going to worry about that. And then we draw in this arm, which happens like this, and then that arm goes in front of it, and we have a little bit of that pad there. And now we can draw in the legs here. This one comes down in front like this, and then, so it creates this line, but as you can see, it has that curve, that arch that Loomis talks about. And then we have the foot pad. And then this one would be something like this, and then goes back like this, keeping in mind that this is much shorter than this because of the bending of the leg, as well as foreshortening, capping in there. But there you generally have it. Those are those reference photos there. And let me know if you guys have worked from reference photos for this one, or if you just worked with ones on page 58 and 59. Either way, I feel like it's going to help you, because the more we practice these skeletal forms that Loomis has talked about, the better off we're going to be, especially recognizing it in different poses, how the same forms happen. We have the head ball, the chest ball, and the pelvis, how does he say it? Box is what he says. And the chest ball here, and that Y. We're learning to recognize all the same forms in each figure depending on what pose they're in, whether we have exaggerated arms like this, or also depending on the angle. And again, to reiterate, that's why it's important to look at these forms as three-dimensional forms, because they change based off position. So if you examine this, you have three-dimensional forms, and the rest are sticks in between that change also, but they have perspective of their own. So these are basically the three forms that Loomis has us drawing, and they change depending on how they're viewed. So if you can have that like that, you can see how they change based off of the perspective, which is nice. They all have their lines of axis and so forth. So we'll say this is a little bit of shading to show it more of a three-dimensional object. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this lesson, part 18 of our Learning to Draw with Andrew Loomis's Fun with a Pencil. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, I encourage you to do that. I'm always releasing cool content that's going to help us learn to draw, but also I release content about my artworks and different artworks that I've made, the creative process behind those, and I think it's going to be really cool. So thanks for stopping by. You're welcome to the channel, and it's a pleasure to have you here. I hope you guys are having fun on this learning journey as much as I am. Until next time, God bless you guys.